Southwest Fire Academy was established in 2015 as a response to the recognized need for quality, safe, and affordable fire and rescue training in Ontario. This is not your average fire college. SFA has high standards for their students, and it is their mission to teach and produce qualified, ambitious firefighters who are prepared to work hard to serve their communities. This is not a diploma mill. This is where you can learn strategic, aggressive firefighting from passionate, intelligent instructors who never forget why they were made to do this job. SFA is an accredited private career college that is regulated by the Ministry of Training, colleges, and universities, with a memorandum of understanding with the Office of the Fire Marshal. This means that SFA is an approved training provider with the OFM, and the programs are recognized in Ontario. Check out their pre-service and expanding selection of course offerings at southwestfireacademy.ca. Hello everyone. Welcome to episode 123 of Multiple Calls. I'm Scott Hewlett. Changing departments at any point in your career is difficult. Whether you felt stuck and wanted a chance in a healthier culture, or felt torn between a department that helped nurture you and an equally great opportunity that benefits your life and your family, it's not the judgment of those that don't know you and can't understand, but the lost time with the ones that became tribe. It's hard to see our friends and family enough, and it's a gift if the job you go to affords you the opportunity month after month to not only do the work, but do it with people you care about. Fulfilling your desire to be of value and service to others feels good, but fulfilling that with people you align with is immeasurable. To say we want this job to help others isn't the whole story. What we truly want is to connect with our own humanity through service, and with those that keep our moral compass calibrated. Both make us better than is possible alone. As a grounded firefighter in the fire service, you'll make friends and family wherever you go, whether it's for a few hours at a lecture, a week at a conference, or years on a department. So seek it out and embrace it with gratitude, no matter the length of time. As a great friend once said when our paths diverged, be glad it happened, not sad that it's over. Here's my chat with Rob Wiggins.
Well, you know how the arc goes, so let's kick off with where you grew up.
Right on. Grew up in Innisfil and Thornton, so spent the first bunch of years of my life in Alcona, and then moved to Thornton in 1996, grade 6. So all my grades corresponded with years. It was easy to remember. And yeah, kicked around there till my wife and I moved to Midhurst area, and we've been here ever since. So I've always been Barrie area.
Nice. And what was the structure of your family growing up?
Mom, dad, 2 younger brothers, 1 younger sister. So I'm the oldest. I got a 39-year-old younger brother, a 31-year-old younger brother, and a 28-year-old younger sister. So big age gap, but same parents, same family. So definitely added an interesting dynamic growing up.
Nice. Your youngest brother just started SFA.
He is. He's signed up. He started in December. So he'll be in the April or May boot camp. So
Wicked.
We've been talking about it for quite a while, and he finally pulled the pin.
He's wanted to do it for a long time?
Well, he's been talking about starting the journey for a while, and then it's more just finally getting after it. Work was the right time. Family life's the right time. So he's going.
Nice.
Full rep.
I'm sure I'll run into him. I'm up there a couple times a month. So.
Yeah, exactly.
And then how was school growing up?
School was always fun. I always had a blast. I didn't excel. In fact, printing off your transcripts to apply, it's always like, holy smokes, I probably should have paid a little more attention, but I always had fun, always did lots of sports. I didn't really take school too seriously until I was younger years, easy. High school was a grind because there was a ton of distractions, whether it was hockey, trucks, snowboarding. Then paramedic school and fire school is kind of where I took it seriously and realized okay, this is it. I kind of learned how to become a student.
If you care about something, you focus on it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And what about sports and hobbies growing up?
Yeah, the typical kind of Barrie area kid. I snowboarded. We're super close to Snow Valley. So hockey, baseball, lacrosse, snowboarding, scuba dive with my dad a ton as a kid. Every time we go on vacation, we do a little scuba course together. So scuba dived quite a bit. And then, I still play hockey. So still snowboard. Just hobbies changed a bit when we're older. I'm not quite as ambitious when it comes to the snowboarding as I used to be.
Does your department have a team?
We do, yeah. So I play in the department of hockey. I play a couple days a week with the guys at work. And I 31 years in hockey. My old job, Oakville Fire Department, which I loved that place. I lost a pretty big game, or was part of the final equation of losing that pretty big game. We had a Movember charity game against Burlington, and I play D. I'm a steady stay-at-home defenseman. I don't take too many risks on the blue line. It was in our end. I know you don't pass up the middle. I sent it right up the middle, pizza right to a Burlington guy, bang, game over. Every year I remind myself during Movember I owe Steve Knowles an apology because I watched the life get sucked from his face on the bench. So, and every now and then I'll get a text reminded about it. So even all these years later, but they were great. Can't win them all.
And what jobs were you doing before you decided to get into fire?
I kind of had a wide range. So I started working at McDonald's in Cookstown for a couple months, just shy of what you needed to kind of get that first McDonald's pin. Did a bunch of landscaping, a bunch of construction labor, window washing, started roofing as a roofing laborer, not as a shingle banger. Once I got into fire school and those guys found out that I wanted to be a firefighter, like that was it. The pressure was on, the chirping from the roof as I was cleaning up down on the bottom. So it was good. It was a good motivator.
I thought being on roofs was dangerous. That's interesting.
Yeah. Well, I guess it depends where you work, right? And then obviously I got on the paramedic in the fire department. Haven't looked back since.
What was the first exposure to the fire service then? What made you want to enter in?
My first exposure and making me want to join are kind of two different things. But growing up, like I grew up in Thornton. Like all my buddies' dads were on the volunteer fire department. I didn't really think much of it, right? The hockey coaches would run out to a pager. There'd be dads in the stands on the game running out to a pager. Didn't really put two and two together. And then when I started dating my wife, I ended up rooming in a house with a bunch of dudes. And one of them had this sweet job. He was telling me about. He just got on as a recruit firefighter. And I was like, okay, this sounds awesome. And he's like, yeah, this is the way, I got on. You go through the paramedic program, then this and that. And that was it. Buckled down. And that was the goal. And then started hard at it. And it took me a little bit longer than I wanted to get on the full time, but it was awesome. Went home, joined the volunteers, like sharing a hall with my buddy's dad. So it was, as soon as I walked in, that was it. They're like, mops over here. Welcome back to coaching you. Right. So yeah, it was great.
What was the process getting on to full time then? How did you walk through that?
It was frustrating and fun and exciting and terrifying, all of the above. So it was before the OFAI process and the kind of regional testing. So you wait in line with 200, 300, 400 other applicants at a hockey arena with your envelope in hand, ready to write a test. We'd carpool with all of our buddies from the volunteer hall. And it was, as much as you're competing with them, you're hoping they succeed. And then you're hoping you also succeed. And I wasn't the greatest at math. Like my girlfriend at the time was having to reteach me high school math because again, my grades weren't the best. And that section I always struggled with. And then looking back now, it's like, it would have been so much easier if I just paid a little more attention. But it was good. Heartbreaking because I'm working as a medic as well. So I got hired as a paramedic first, and then wanting to enter the fire service as a paramedic, it's one of two ways. You get people who either were like, that's the passion I want to go, or that's the route I wanted to go and didn't get there, or you are shunned. And it's like you kind of operate in the shadows. Writing exams and studying for exams and practicing, hiring exam booklets when you used to print them out. You had to kind of do that by yourself, and then getting off shift and going straight to a gymnasium to stand in line all day and write. But it was awesome. And I wouldn't change it for the world. And I applied to anywhere within basically Ontario that was drivable. And I think I got on the right places and it all worked out in the long term, but it was definitely a grind.
You wrote that you had a couple close calls. Do you mean close chances of getting on, or you had some issues?
Yeah, as a volunteer getting on, there was some definitely eye-opening experiences of how serious the fire service can be. Because in my volunteer world, I was so new, and Tuesday night trainings, until you've been on for quite a while, you can only really be prepared for what you've been trained on. And there was no formal, at that time, hey, you're doing weekends for 6 months before we get you on a truck. It was like, okay, here's your skill set. Try to operate on the call within these skill sets. So we had a pretty bad close call on a basement fire. that was the days of shared SCBA masks, one radio per crew. You're lucky if you could find a hand light. And then we actually were involved in a pumper truck crash that was pretty significant. So I was minor injuries in that it kind of put a spotlight on, this is serious. And my wife was through all that with me, my girlfriend at the time, right? And she stuck through it and we kept pushing, but it was definitely some eye-opening experiences. This is no joke. And until I think you're in that position, I don't think you realize how serious it can get. And, we all go to work and we love it, but one day is your day, right? It's inevitable. It will come. And I hope that you're ready for it, right? I wasn't at that time.
No, I think back on a lot of calls I was on, I feel exactly the same way. You almost missed your Oakville interview.
I just got off an EMS shift that morning, raced home, showered, shaved, got my clothes, and I was heading down the 400. And I was talking to my dad on the phone, and he's like, "Okay, good luck," doing the dad thing. Just in front of me, a couple cars in front, was a super serious motor vehicle collision. It involved both lanes. It ended up being a fatal collision. So I slammed on my brakes, got out, and went into work mode. I wasn't even thinking about the interview. I told my dad, like, "Holy crap, I gotta let you go." So we get out, and a few other emergency service guys who were in the general area came up, and we just kind of went to work trying to stabilize the vehicle and the patient as much as we could. Just with the traffic on both ways and involving north and south, it was a super delay for fire and EMS resources to get through. OPP ended up getting in. He's like, "Hey, what do you need? What can we do for you?" I said, "Well, this guy's managing that. I've got the patient here. Can you give EMS or fire an update of what we need?" He gave us an ETA. EMS, fire will update their thing. And the police officer, he's OPP. I wish I had his name. He was talking to me the whole time. He's like, "Where you heading? Why are you in a suit?" I'm like, "I'm on my way to an interview down in the GTA. It's in an hour. Don't think I'm going to make it." And he's like, "Which car is yours?" And I said, "It's that blue Honda over there." And once everything was done and the scene was done, like the highway was a disaster, he had the local volunteer fire department take the section of guardrail that was destroyed, cleared it. He had my car pulled out around, ready to go. I'm covered in diesel fuel, body fluids. And he's like, "Hey, your car's out front. Good luck. Get out there and get after it." So that was my interview. I showed up. There's a lineup of people in a waiting room, and I looked like an absolute train wreck coming through. And the train division, they didn't believe me when I said why I was late. They actually pulled it up on the news on the TV, and they're like, "Oh, there it is. I guess he's telling the truth." So, and they ended up hiring me. It was awesome.
Were you feeling pretty relaxed getting in there because you sort of got sidetracked, or was it stressing you out more?
No, I was definitely stressed out more because, obviously I walked in completely, I was unprepared for the situation, but it is what it is. Like, that's kind of our job. And then you quickly flip into work mode and it's irrelevant. You just assess what's in front of you and you deal with the situation. So I kind of flipped into work mode. And then once I got there, the adrenaline's coming down a bit. I think the most stressful part was that you entered a room with all these other applicants, and I've now flipped out of work mode. I'm back into applicant mode, and I'm like, look at all these qualified individuals sitting here, and I look like a train wreck, showing up late, right? Messy. And then what I didn't know at the time was it was a partial interview, partial hands-on medical scenario.
Oh.
So we got thrown into it, and we just flicked into work mode, and away we went. Like I said, it worked out, but when I showed up, the train division knew exactly who I was, and they're like, "Oh, welcome." So
what was the recruit experience like?
It was awesome. I thought I would have a good understanding. So I was a medic for about 6 years at that point, and I'd been on volunteer for probably 6 or 7 as well. And so I walked in thinking fairly comfortable rural volunteer firefighter, working in a medium-sized urban/suburban paramedic service. And I thought I'd have a pretty good understanding of what to expect. And I walked in day one, and it just, nope, back to the day one of everything. They ran such a tight ship and nothing but professionalism. It was wild. The expectation levels were next level. There was no showing up late. There was no showing up with an untucked shirt. The train division was intense. It was Van Zandt, who a guy named Matt Worley. They ran the train division as far as the hands-on training instructors, and they're both ex-military. So they ran it like a military rig, and it was awesome. Mandatory PT before shift for an hour. and then intense classes. It was a 14, 15 week. So the drive down was added to your day. So you just had to fuel up on both ends, and it was awesome.
Were you in pretty good shape when you went in?
I was in decent shape. Like I was always working out and always into hockey, but they definitely demanded another level of fitness. Van Zandt ran a fire fit mock course every morning. We called it the Viper Pit at one point, where it was you on one side of the tire flip and your entire class on the other side. And just, it was someone's turn on that side of the Viper Pit. And Van Zandt ran us up and down the drill tower. He pushed us. It was awesome. Almost the whole recruit class ended up joining the fire fit team that year.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, so I think it was still to date the largest fire fit team that had ever been submitted. It was in I think the 15, 20 people.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, so like guys like Sean Henderson, Matty Longwell, those guys were like anchors of the Oakville Combat Challenge team at that time.
Yeah.
And they just took us all in and were like, this is awesome, let's do it. And we did some local events, ended up going to nationals in Montreal. And Montreal was a disaster. I fell twice in the course, threw up in my mask. Like, it was bad. But got up, somehow finished it, and then I don't even remember. I hit the bag and that was it. Blacked out. Whatever.
Yeah. It's never fun, no matter how fast you run it.
For sure.
And how were the rookie years when you hit the floor?
Again, awesome. I got put at a busy hall, so the training officers were we were a huge class. We were a class of 24, I believe. They tried to pair you up where your personality and experience would kind of meet. So I ended up at Station 4 with an absolute great group of guys at the time. It was a 2-truck haul. They ran a ladder company and a rescue company out of there. And it was awesome. Met some great people who I'm still friends with today. Busy crew, liked to train. My captain was this salty, awesome dude named Warren Peaks. He's passed, but he was amazing, and he was at the busiest hall for years, right? And he just loved it, loved the job, loved talking to everybody. You'd be longer at a call talking to people after the call than you were at the call. That was kind of Peaksy's thing. My first actor, Anthony, he pushed us hard. Like, you were in the gym with him, and it was non-negotiable. Like, we're getting after it every day. You were going to be stronger than the last, right? So no, it was great. I always joke that I liked being a rookie so much I did it twice, right? Like, switching jobs, which was great. It was probably the hardest decision I'd ever made. And then going through that, like the motions and the up and downs, like I bled OFD. Like, I did not think, how could I ever leave this place? And then the opportunity came to switch to Barrie, and hometown. The process was the right process. And I had applied a bunch of times prior to getting on Oakville to Barrie and never got a sniff. And then this was the one. So I threw my name in the hat. And
how long were you in before you switched?
I was first class. So I think I was in six-ish years.
Okay, that's enough time.
It wasn't like it was my first couple of years. So I went in fairly confident, having a few years behind my belt. Like, again, still learning every day. Like, I didn't know what I didn't know. And then working with whoever you work with is really what you're exposed to, right? The call volume can expose you to one thing, but then who you're working with exposes you to the other side. And if those guys are dialed in, which thankfully I was exposed to dialed in guys, that was the part that brought me along and really showed me kind of what to be. Like, my crew was amazing. There was another crew that mirrored us, 2A, and there was some guys on there that you just, at shift trade, you looked up to those guys. Like, you did 1 or 2 overtime shifts on that crew, and you're like, wow, like, it's just a different dynamic, right? And I think it's because you don't work with them every day. It's like looking through the looking glass, right? Like, they just seemed that much faster, that much more competent. And we had made a few mistakes where what left the truck in a certain way or a tool in the wrong spot, and those guys would always call you out, but in the most, like, almost nurturing way. Like, hey, yeah, this axe can't be left with plaster all over it. I know you guys cleaned up after the fire, but the hand tools are part of the rig, right? And it's like, oh, I completely forgot. It got put in the cabinet. It wasn't the packs. It wasn't the hose. It wasn't our gear. So they demanded a higher level of operating, and everybody kind of rose to their level.
You wrote What Was Barrie Actually Like? Were you seeing it from a different side of things? Is that what you mean by that?
I became a volunteer captain on my local department, and then I was a Simcoe medic and a Dufferin County paramedic. Both those places I can't say enough good about. They gave me my foot in the door. I'm a better paramedic because I was on volunteer fire, and I was a better firefighter because of my paramedic background. So I'd always been around Barrie, and it's like looking as a medic, running calls with Barrie guys, or being on the volunteer captain side, running mutual aid calls on the highway or in paid agreement areas. but you don't really know what the culture of the fire department at that department's like, right? It's like if people ask me where I was, hey, what's your department like? Well, it's obviously the best. Like there's where you work is the best. Who you work with is the best, right? Like, yeah, you might end up on a crew with one or two guys who are, maybe hard to work with for a blip in your career, but where you work is always the best. So playing hockey with those guys and knowing them from in town, it was hard to get a real understanding of what the culture of that fire department was. We just knew of what they talked about, and I could tell them the same about where I worked. So I really didn't know what I was signing up for. And then we just jumped in with both feet, and I had 2 kids and 5 minutes to home. Like it was the right fit. So it blew my expectations away. Like it was definitely, I loved the OFD and I love those guys and gals over there. I think it was 227 members when I left. Like they were my first true fire family, and I talked to a bunch of them, see them the odd time, but moving to where I am was definitely the right decision long term.
Great training facility down there too.
Oakville's training facility is next level.
Right.
Yeah, that place, and I didn't know any different, right?
I didn't know until I saw it this year. I was blown away. I was like, this is like Candyland here.
Yeah, and I just assumed that's what every full-time fire department had, because I didn't really know a ton of, when I was going through the motions of getting on, I didn't have a ton of full-time buddies to lean back on, or they were so new. It was like, yeah, you can come by my hall, but like, I can't take you anywhere or show you anything off the clock, right? It's the bigger metro centers. So I just assumed that was the standard for full-time fire departments. I didn't realize there was such a wide variety of training grounds until I kind of banged around a bit.
You wrote about interview compassion fatigue. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so in my Barrie interview, it was great. They were hiring 5 of us straight to the floor with a brief recruitment. So it wasn't a full 3-month recruitment class. I went in fairly comfortable, but obviously I wanted that job badly. But the pressure was off a little bit because I already had my dream job. So I went in almost with like, okay, if this works out, fantastic. If it doesn't work out, I still have the best job in the world, and I'm on what I consider the best crew in the department. Like, and I was still wrapping my head around, how do I actually pull this Band-Aid off and make this decision happen? And so I went in fully comfortable. Obviously, as soon as you sat down, the nerves are there. But the one deputy caught me off guard. He's like, oh, I see you worked as a medic in 2 places at once, and you were on the volunteer fire department. He's like, do you have compassion fatigue?
Interesting.
And it caught me off guard. I was like, oh, I don't think I do. But now that I only work one emergency service and I'm not running all over town putting on different uniforms, I think you definitely can overdo it. And I wasn't overdoing it, but I could see how if I kept at that work pace, you could overdo it, right? And even just the level of patience I have for people and patience at calls, looking back, there's probably times where I was less patient with people who maybe we collectively thought hey, is this an emergency? Well, that's not our decision. This is their emergency, right? They've had a call for a service. We're there to deliver. Our biases and our prejudice are out the door, right? It's irrelevant. This is an emergency to them. Yes, we've seen way worse. Yes, we go to way worse. But to these people, this is the worst day of their life they're having right now. And I think it's important that we apply that lens to it.
How'd you get involved with instructing?
Instructing was a bit of a fluke. So my pre-service, I actually went to pre-service back when Ontario was doing the modules. I just could not get all my modules done. The booking wasn't there. My volunteer fire department didn't have the time. So I actually, when I was working in Orangeville as a medic, went to the Ontario Fire Academy, which was in Orangeville. So I would do night shifts at the ambulance and then try to do my next days at the end of that cycle where I could attend class. And I was not in every class, which rubbed some of the instructors and people the wrong way because they basically let me run it as a part-time program, and part-time programs didn't exist. So Chief Mathalewski, who ran the school at the time, he was great to me. And then I ended up seeing him at the hospital a few years later after I'd got on. So this is, probably 7-8 years later. I saw him at the hospital. He was there with a family member, and he's like, hey, I heard you got on. What are you doing? Blah, blah. And I said, well, I'm working here, working there. And he's like, do you want to come teach where you used to teach? So I said, oh, I'd love to. So I showed up. I never really taught anybody outside of my volunteer hall. So when you're teaching your peers in the volunteer side, it's your friends. It's the people you're running the truck with. So you're just passing on what you know, and they kind of look at you, oh man, there's a full-time guy who's going to teach us this. I've been full-time for 13 seconds, right? Like there was way more professional, lifelong volunteers at that hall than than me working full time for, a minute. So teaching at the volunteer hall, I kind of knew how to teach, but I didn't know how to teach new people. So I got dropped into Orangeville, and first day was ladders. And it's like, yeah, you're showing them how to throw the 24 and you're showing them how to tie the halyard. It's like, okay, I hope I remember how to do this correctly. And there was no data on my phone then, so there's nothing to review. I just got thrown to the wolves. That was kind of how it happened. And then started teaching at the OFA and was there for a number of years, met some great people. And that's kind of where I learned that there's another level to instructing in firefighting, where if you are going to hold that position, you would better understand how to teach it, what to teach it, and not just mimic, but why we're doing it and apply a real world lens to it. Because if they don't understand why that skill is important, if you can't portray why that skill is important, then they're not going to absorb it the same, right? When they understand, like, no, this is a real tactic that we've had successful rescues with, I've seen it firsthand, or I've been told about it firsthand, all of a sudden it applies a little bit more serious to it. Everyone tries a little bit harder, the pace picks up, and everyone, I think, gets way more out of it.
You wrote that you, and it resonated with me, that you had a similar experience that every instructor, I believe, has at some point. Is like you had a demo that didn't go very well.
Yeah. So there was this, I don't remember his last name. He was on in Toronto. His name was Scott. He worked there, and he was dialed instructor. So we were doing hose deployments on the floor, and it was back when we were teaching flat load Minuteman Triple Air was the 3 hose load demos. And he's like, hey, Wiggins, show them how we're going to deploy this Minuteman. And he put me on the spot, and he didn't mean to. It's not like he was doing it to make me look bad. He was just, hey, this guy's on the job. We didn't deploy Minuteman where I worked. So my only exposure to the Minuteman was teaching it at the college. So it went like a train wreck. I looked like I didn't know what the heck I was doing, because I didn't know what the heck I was doing, right? We pulled triple A and we pulled flat loads. So pull this Minuteman, it was a disaster. And he had to stop I did the demo, and he had to stop. We repacked it, and then he had to re-demo the skill. And he did it in a super supportive way. Like, he wasn't like, okay, that was crap, now I'm going to show you the way we do it. He was just like, yeah, that was great, right? This is how we do it in our truck, and And he brought those real world experiences to it, walked it through it. I learned way more than the students did watching that demo. And then I was like, okay, if you're going to teach here, there's not just, you can't just fall back on what you're doing at work and now call it, oh, I'm an instructor of these exact 8 skills. Because if you're teaching at a pre-service level, there's going to be things that you don't do at your job every day. You have to practice, train in those, and geek out in them so that you're as proficient in them as if you run them every day. So Scott came up to me after. He actually apologized. He's like, I am so sorry if I put you on the spot. He's like, didn't mean to, you recovered well, but hey, let's practice this and let's work on this together. So he was great. And that was my first kind of, wake up call. So I had some wake up calls at work of how to do better, be better on the back of the rig and what the expectation was. But that was my first real wake up call as an instructor. Like, this is pre-service. You're not just teaching at your volley hall. You're not just helping out here and there. Like, there's a giant textbook that maybe we touched on this stuff in your recruitment, maybe you didn't, but you are presenting yourself as an expert in this book. And agree with that book or not, applying that lens 20 years later. But if you're teaching that book, you have to understand the content in it and where to apply it.
You said you were pestering your training officer at Oakville to bring you out.
My buddy Matty was teaching off the job, and he had gone to the floor at that point. And we got along great at post-recruit class. Like, a few of those TOs end up going to the floor. And so you have a bit more of a rapport with them. They trained you from this little egg and brought you into the fire world as like this little chick running around. And then you see them on the highway later and you're a full-fledged chicken. I saw Matty, and he'd come in. He was on a different shift. He'd come in and he'd throw his personal gear down to get his work gear out of his trunk. And I'd heard he was doing all this awesome off-the-job training, and I was basically begging him every time I saw him or switched into his hall. I was like, Matty, bring me out to your guys' team, blah, blah. I'll just bring water bottles to the guys. Like, I will stand there and do accountability. I just want to see what you guys are doing. And so finally I pestered him enough, and he's like, all right, we had a guy cancel. You can come out, be here this time, this day. It was hours away. I had to leave at like 4 a.m. and showed up and met the team. So it was Mark's team. Mark ran the whole crew, met some amazing instructors. And I mean, they must have liked me. They've kept me around since. I owe it all to those guys.
Langford's a real special guy, eh?
He took some time on me. if you were going to teach with him, he was going to make sure that you were up to snuff. So like guys like Bacca, Langford, Bull, Worley, those guys were at another level of teaching. And Langford spent some time on me and just made sure that we were on the same page of what was expected, especially when you're training firefighters now. You're not training students, and you're not just training friends who are on my volunteer hall. You're representing a crew, you're representing a team, and people are paying to be there who are full-time or part-time volunteer or full-time firefighters to get taught a certain way at a certain level. So those guys demanded professionalism, and they brought me in, and Langford, he liked teaching with me, and he ended up letting me help him start Hogtown Fools, loop me in on the tail end of that. So he was great. I have nothing but good things to say about Mikey. He was awesome.
Joe and I were just talking on the side today at SFA about how it was hard to teach firefighters as a younger guy. Like they would throw you to the wolves and make you teach. And even all the way through, firefighters are hard to teach, right? And some of them can be very difficult on purpose. But you either rise to the challenge and they hone you to be a really good instructor because you really have to know your stuff, or you'll just crumble and crack. So they really are a blessing in disguise, I guess.
Totally. And that was the biggest thing, is like, you would know right away when you're teaching a group of guys from other departments, like already I'm younger than them or the same age, but they're already, and they may be on way busier departments, right? And as much as we say it doesn't matter where you're on, right? And it matters what you do and what you bring to the job. I think we still judge each other with a bit of a lens of like, oh, where are you on, right? Oh, how long you been on, right? And again, how long you've been on and what you've done in that time are two different things, but we still bring that judgment. So when you're doing your intro and your bio and it's like, hey, I'm Rob, I work here, yada, yada, been on for, 6, 7, 8 years, whatever it was that time, all of a sudden they're either buying in or they're immediately buying out. And then you have to now get them back in, right, on what you're presenting and the passion and level of what you're presenting with. If they think it's a basic course that this guy's just teaching us pre-service level stuff, they're never going to buy in, right? But if all of a sudden you can relate to them, and I find not putting guys on the spot, like we're teaching as if we're all buddies, right? We all know each other, we're all at work. Not putting guys on the spot, letting everyone in the kind of group either answer questions or demo together. Like, I tried never to point out and be like, you're first, right? Or, hey, who wants to go first? And then it's a giant group of eyes looking at you. So it was like, hey, I'm going to go first. You guys just kind of filter in behind me. I'm going to demo the skill. Let's see how it goes. Let's talk about it after. We're going to pause halfway through, see if there's anything we need to correct. Is there anything anyone wants to add, right? What have you guys learned at your job that you can teach the group right now? So I always applied like a group teaching lens where we can all learn from each other, right? Like obviously, if you got a decade somewhere, you've done things, you've got experiences, add them to this class. I'm just the guy who's standing in the front here, right? I'm no more special than anyone else in this group. I just happen to be the guy who they said, hey, go teach that leg of the course, right? Any one of those guys could have stepped up and probably taught that same leg and just done it with their experience and their lens of training on it.
I've learned so many things from students in classes that I was, quote unquote, the lead in, that I'm looking for it now all the time, trying to pull stuff out of the class because somebody knows something.
Yeah. And social media has made it that much easier too, because you'll go into a course and you might already know who half your class is, right? Because all of a sudden they've seen who the instructor is and it's like ding, added. And you look at these guys who are taking your course, you're like, man, these guys are polished. Like, you better make sure you're polished, right? And now with everybody sharing what they're doing and departments actually speaking to each other, like training divisions actually communicating through, whether it's informal channels or informal channels, there's no hiding it, right? You know what the department next to you is either doing or not doing, right? So it's not like you can sit back and go, well, we'll get to that eventually. It's like, no, like smaller departments are doing this, or this department is doing this, and here's why. How do we apply that to us, right? Do we have the manpower? Do we have the equipment? Do we have the expertise? If we don't have the expertise, then let's find the expertise. And a lot of times you can find the expertise either in-house of just guys who haven't stepped up yet, or in your backyard, right? Call your neighbors, call your friends.
You briefly mentioned Hogtown Fools there. Dive a bit deeper on how that happened and how the experience has been.
Mike had kind of started that whole process, and then COVID hit and shut it down. So we tried to build the momentum with some online videos focused on high rise. And then we had a few really good successful events. They're still up and running, but those guys, man, they put so much trust in me. They gave me the whole passive entry side of their forcible entry course, which I love passive entry. That was my baby. I geeked out on that for quite a while. So they gave me that whole like zero oversight. They just said, Wiggs, do your thing. You got the passive entry thing. And I mean, I still talk to those guys. I'm still a Hogtown guy, and they're awesome. And I mean, I think the more chapters you get, the better. It was great. The passive thing too, like I love forcing doors and I love blowing locks out, but it is pretty slick when those chub keys are missing and everyone's like, oh man. And all of a sudden you pull out your little bag of tricks from your pocket and that door's open. You can throw a spring clamp on that front door of that condo and everybody just moves through like nothing. We utilize that almost every shift, right? And even like the spring clamp on the door, we use it, caution tape taped to them for ventilation tactics, courtesy of Brooksy. But we use those spring clamps. They're on our defibs, they're on our med bags, they're on our high-res kits, because if you're up there on a hot call and the medics are calling from the lobby, right, you roll up a mat and you throw it in front of the door. Well, somebody obviously pulls the mat out, and then the medics are calling, access code on the door. The phone's ringing while you're on a hot EMS call. I don't know what to push on that phone to get the door to open. So spring clamp in a condo front door, letting it close, doesn't latch. Like, it's a beauty little tip that we picked up, and it helps big time.
Speaking of Brooksy, you said you got involved with Hollingshead, who I'm having on soon.
Oh, nice. Paul is a beauty. Paul came into the training division where I was working, and this guy's energy was next level. I was like, okay, I'm all in, right? I don't really know him. I knew he came from Milton, and I was like, I'm all in. This guy's, it was unbelievable. It was addictive, right? He just applied a different level of intensity that, again, it's just a different training style, right? So I gravitated to that. We ended up becoming buddies while I was there. He was gracious enough to let me help out with a few recruit classes. So he would give me a few little tips. I was on the ladder company and at Station 4. So he's like, hey, we're doing ladder truck ops. Come on down, show him what you guys do in the North End. So he was a huge help. I text him all the time. He'd been a huge mentor to me. I bounce stuff off him all the time. It's been, the odd time. I'm like, hey, what do you think of this? And he's like, dude, I don't even know why you're asking me. You're on it. He's like, you got it. Keep going. So I don't have enough good things to say about Paul. He's great.
You're doing high-rise stuff with him?
Yeah, so I didn't really start high-rise stuff with him. What happened was the guys in the shift at my hall we were running 65 coupling to 38 mil reducer on a 45 hand line with a gated wide fog nozzle. And then these guys on 2A were trialing the new high-rise equipment, and it was still not great. It was Cleveland load. It was a semi-smooth bore. It was still gated wise. There were still some problems with it, but it was the growing pains of Ontario kind of entering that realm of high-rise. So Paulie was in charge of that, and then I kind of got looped in on that side of the high-rise thing. And that's where I started geeking out on high-rise, and then that led into my kind of high-rise conference circuit. Once we realized what we were doing and what the Brooksy program was, it was clear as day of where we had to get to. So we started working on that. Curtis Mantell, he's a captain there now in Oakville. He was all over that. I think he's still running that right now, but it was great. I learned a ton. So Kurt and I were in the same carpool group, and I would just pick his brain. Like, what's going on with this? What's going on with that? Anytime we drove together, it was pick his brain.
So that's how you got involved in the conference circuit?
Yeah. So Mark, Mike, Steve Macris from Mississauga, Brooksy, a bunch of guys were doing the Canadian High Rise Conference, and this was 2019, I believe. I had heard from the instructor team that this High Rise Conference was coming. I had no part in planning it. This was for the next level dudes. And I was geeking out on high rise at the time, and I was like, let me run water bottles again. Like, how can I get there to take as much of this course with just being in the shadows? So I, again, begged, borrowed, stole, did whatever I had to do. And this guy, Steve Macris, he was amazing. He's like, you know what? I got an opening on my spot. We're going to do well stretches. We're going to do improvised standpipes. We're going to do all these other tactics. He's like, where are you at with that? I'm like, comfortable, but tell me everything you know. He and I chatted for hours. He sent me everything he had. We conversed back and forth to make sure we're on the same page. And he gave me the green light to be his shadow instructor at his station. And I learned so much from that dude. It was amazing. He was, again, like, he would Sharpie. I stole a bunch of his teaching styles of like, what you like from guys, what you don't. And one thing I really liked from him was the way he did his whiteboards. He did them on big, huge chunks of paper, written in Sharpie, point form that you could, he used it as a guide to keep himself on track, but it was also students to take pictures of, right? And capture those notes and capture pieces of his brain. So later when they had a question, or if they emailed them for a question, they had his exact notes in point form of where to fall back on. And what it found was when they go back to their departments, it's not just, yeah, I took this wicked course at this conference and here's everything they told me. It's like, yeah, here's this guy's notes. Let's break this down. And it keeps them on track for trying to replicate that training and replicate that training material. So that was how I got, involved in the conference circuit. Like Brooksy was my roommate there. So, and that was, again, 7-8 years ago now, 7 or 8 years. So it was hilarious looking back now. Like I was in a room with all these giants I had no business being in, like giants in our local fire scene. And I'm like, what am I doing here? Like thanks for having me. Like, are you sure that's my name on the board? Like,
I know exactly what that feels like. The imposter syndrome is just crazy.
And part of that conference, they had arranged to have Miami-Dade guys come down. Like Bill Gustin came down with his crew.
Crazy.
You want to talk about guys who could stretch a line from a floor below? They were like an army of ants, and it was unbelievable to watch. And that's just what they did. That was their high rises, right? They have all stairwell standpipes, and they charge on the floor below, and they line them up in their pinch points, and they command the stretch. And they'll put, I don't want to put words in those Miami guys' mouths, but like they'll bring two engine companies together and have one line boss, and like that captain commands the stretch. Objectives clear. Do we know where we're going? Do we know where the pinch points are? Boom, let's go. And it just click, click, click. That's how I met Bill Gustin and just learned a ton from him. He gave me a challenge coin. That's probably my favorite one. Like when Bill Gustin gives you a challenge coin, first off, it's about the size of a coaster. It was amazing. And he was a character. I learned a lot from listening to him too. And
dude, you got to co-author a book. Tell me about how that happened.
That was kind of the whole thing with going on the conferences. After teaching with the Miami guys through Mark, we ended up going down to H-Rock and helping out for like the suburban stretch, which was like Bill Gustin's class. So I got to meet all of Bill's team, which is now run by Clark Lamping, who, again, if you haven't talked to Clark, he's another amazing human. But they threw me a leg at H-Rock, and they're like, yep, you're on the team. Here you go. You're teaching this. And I was like, what is going on again? So after we came back from that, checking my email, and I see an email from Mark, and it says, Matt and I are doing this book, yada, yada, yada. Just what are you guys' thoughts on this? So I sent an email with all my thoughts on a bunch of stuff. And all of a sudden I get a call, and it's them on speakerphone. And they said, hey, thanks for your email. It's all terrible. I said, oh, okay. Thanks. And they're like, yeah, so terrible. How'd you like to come in and finish this thing with us? And they had it already 85, 90%, but they brought me in on the tail end. They're like, you've got this content. It's your baby. Make it happen. So dealing with that, and it's called The Tactical Firefighter, and we kind of worked on that. And again, they brought me in on the tail end of it. They gave me my own section. Dealing with fire engineering authors was amazing. Like all these things I had never done. I'm obviously not an author. I mean, I guess I am now in a small part, but dealing with that, I was not a computer person. I can work a phone pretty good, and going back and forth on editors and editing and saving your changes. I've probably lost my work half a dozen times calling my wife for help, who's, uses a computer pretty good. So yeah, that was the process of that. And it was, again, I owe Matt and Mark so much. They had no reason to extend that invitation. Like they know worlds more than I do. But again, they reached out, offered that hand. And I was like I'm forever grateful to all those opportunities. I can't thank them enough.
And how did FDIC happen?
Those guys brought me down, and we were teaching a course based on some chapters from the book. And they're like, this is your section. Do you want to come down and throw it out there? So I'm not a suit and tie guy. I love t-shirts and hoodies at work as much as my platoon chief and fire chief hate that, right? That is my comfort style. So they invited me down to teach a section. I dressed up like I was going to sell you a timeshare and stood at the front of the class. And it was awesome. And there was guys from all over. There was a guy from Mexico Fire Department, major city, some guys from Ontario. As soon as you do the introduction, you see Ontario flags. Like, you better not BS, right? Like it's a little bit less pressure when you don't know who you're teaching to. And I was now fairly comfortable teaching. But again, when you see your neighboring departments who have paid good money to go down to Indy, and they're learning from a guy that they could have talked to in their backyard, you better step it up. So I did my best. Nobody threw anything at me. Nobody walked out. I judged my success based on that, and it was awesome. It was an amazing experience.
And you wrote about the Cobb County study. That's a really dialed-in department. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so Cobb County, I ended up meeting Jason Jones from there. He's battalion chief there now. He's on Clark's team for the suburban kind of mid-rise. And like, again, meeting those guys at H-Rock, I'm down there in the same room as Jimmy Davis, Jason Jones, Brooksy, McCormick, all these guys. I'm standing there in the corner, like, again, why am I here? So we were doing the Cobb County study at work on the FRSI program. And all of a sudden, like, oh, I know a guy from there. Ring up Jay. He's like, yep, I know exactly all about that. I know exactly who to give you the number for. He goes, do you want to hear it firsthand? I go, well, obviously, yeah. This guy who I talked to, it was so intense. I'm not going to get the details of it, but I had to pull over on the highway. I was on speakerphone, and we chatted for 2 hours about his firsthand experiences of that Cobb County study. And like, you can't put into words how much and how real it gets talking to those guys after watching it online, going through the course, but then be able to apply the real world, actual first person experience to it. And again, being able to pick up the phone and call those guys, like, it's incredible, right? Like, I called Justin, he's down in Redwood, Cali. We message each other all the time. Hey, what do you got on EV? This is what we're doing. Like, we got a guy at work, Brooksy, he's heading up this huge EV program. And it's like, show me what you got. And boom, I'll compare it to Justin's stuff, and we'll just look around. It's like, oh, that's amazing. Oh, that works well for them. Does that work for us? We're not really that big yet. And we swap pieces, share ideas. And like, it really is one fire service. Just like Brian Brush says, like, look outside your four walls. You can go to any hall in North America. It's the same guys, same hard starters, same base of people who are keeping the place running. And that's one of the things I think is important to remember, is that I'll hear some guys say like, oh, that guy's at a slow hall, or, oh, my buddy's over in Toronto, he's at a slow hall. He was at the busiest hall for 17 years or 18 years, right? Just a rookie or a new guy needed that spot, and that's where he landed. Like, it doesn't take away from what he did. You just weren't here for that, right? And I think that same lens needs to be applied for instructing. I have my hand in quite a few programs that I'm fortunate enough to help out with at work, and it's just our time. There were other guys before you who built those programs, who helped get them to fruition, who got those tools in the truck. So when we pull this tool off, we're like, oh, there's so much better stuff now than this. A guy worked his butt off to get that tool approved, bring it to the chief, train the department. So just because it's our time right now to be involved in this, I think you still have to look back and remember the guys who blazed the trail to get you to that position. Right? They're in leadership positions now. They maybe don't have the time and or the ability to be an instructor in this discipline. They have 25 years of that knowledge that they used to teach on it. Like, listen to them, right? They are there to guide you. They've done it.
Yeah, know your history and know the historians, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you meet Phil through Brooksy?
Phil I met from just being in town here. So we're both locals, and we have some common friends. And then once we started doing our high-rise program where I work, he was doing his. We instantly became buds, texted back and forth. It's like, hey, what's working for you? What's working for this? We swapped ideas. We're both similar-sized departments. We're a medium-sized urban department. So we were both coming at the same time, same lens, same obstacles. And that was kind of how Phil and I became buds. And yeah, it was super awesome to hear his episode. That was great.
Yeah, small world.
Very small world, yeah.
So you were planning on laying low in Barrie as a new guy, but that didn't really go as planned.
Well, I came right before COVID. I'd been on a few years at my old job, so I kind of knew how to play the rookie game. I learned a lot, got my chewings for making those mistakes as a rookie, so I knew how to play the game. I didn't know the field. So I came to Barrie. My plan was just to stay low, keep it quiet. And then COVID hit. So we had shut down, I think it was the 2020 high-rise conference. So my department had a couple guys signed up for that course in leadership roles that were taking that course. So once it went through and they're looking at it and they're like, oh, hang on, is that guy's name? They came over, stopped me out of the bay floor. They're like, is this you teaching this leg of the course? And I was like, yeah, that's me. That was my part. And they're like, well, it's canceled. What were you going to do? Like, what were you going to teach? What can we do here? Like, what do you think of what we got? And I'm like, okay, here we go. Didn't really plan on this, but so we broke it down. We looked at the pieces of the puzzle. And again, it was the old system of what everybody in Ontario was doing, right? Nobody knew any different. That was the standard, right? So it's not like anybody was doing it wrong. It's just, we weren't looking outside of our box big enough to see what the right way was. And once you looked at the bigger box, of what the right way is, it's pretty evident of where we need to get to. So they kind of threw me the program a little bit. They're like, hey, here's the big runners of who's in it. Present your ideas, go through the motions, yada, yada. And they were amazing. They were supportive. They ended up running with it. All of a sudden, equipment's getting bought. And here I am, only a few years on there. And it's like, I'm switching equipment. They're asking me to be involved in the training of, hey, here's our current high-rise STIs. Why don't you guys all train together, get on the same board, and let's deliver this to the whole department. And it was like, okay, hope I have my ducks in a row. So get on the phone, call Brooksy, call Holland's Head, call all those guys. Here's where I'm at. Here's my plan. You guys have already done this. Like, I'm not looking to reinvent the wheel, right? What can we do for a department my size to apply your big city tactics and your big city equipment? So we made some concessions. We ended up running a 2-inch lead length attack line, supplied by all the 2.5. And then one thing we found, which was nice about teaching all the high-rise conferences, is if you do decide to hook up on the fire floor, right, which comes with its own risks, it is what it is, right? If you're hooking up on the fire floor, you better tag the stairwell. So we weren't able to run a new rope bag, run all these other pieces to tag the stairwell. So if we were hooking up on the fire floor, we were taking the occupant hose and we're bringing it back to the stairwell door. So that at least if something happens and we're going back to our basic firefighter recruit level instinct of smooth bump to the pump, that's going to bring us to the hose cabinet. But how do we get from the hose cabinet to the stair? And that's where there were mistakes happening. So we took the occupant hose, tagged the stairwell, solved the problem. But what ended up happening is we did the red lead length. And when we were doing the floor below nozzle, we would drop a bundle off our back. And when they were all blue, we kept leaving the nozzle bundle. So we ended up making the nozzle bundle red helmet for the captain. He takes the nozzle bundle, red fire. Every time, no matter what, red hose line goes to the door. So that was kind of how we approached that situation.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was wild. It was stressful. Like, I had no business going around just senior guys, teaching them this new way of what we're doing. Like, okay, so hang on. I'm the captain. I don't carry hose. Now you want to put hose in my back? Okay, so we're using 1 3/4 lines. Actually, they were 1.5 inch rubber. Now you're wanting us to take up 2.5. So like, what are you doing to us here, right? So it was a learning curve. And I thank honestly, the guys were amazing. They could have pushed back on me so much harder than they did. And everybody was super supportive. I can't say enough good things about it.
Yeah, and you've got some history of instructing. You have proper tact and a good approach. That goes a long way.
They really did give me the grace of my prior experiences, which sometimes your prior experiences are a curse, sometimes they're a benefit, right? And if you come in, hey, this is how I did it at my old job, that's not going to go great in any fire service, right? You're either on our team or you're not. So my whole life, I wanted to be on the team I'm on. So now that I'm there, I wanted to make sure that I want to do as much good as I can while I'm here and being involved as I can in as many different projects as I can. So they gave me full grace and were nothing but supportive.
Talk to me about the line of duty death of Bill Wiggins and how you apply that lens to training.
That's still fresh in our department. His face is on every wall. There's still men I work with who were there that day and who were his best friends. We were doing VES, Venator Search training, across the whole department. What happened with the high-rise program is by ditching the gated Y and the 2 lines, all of a sudden we were tasked with how are we searching off a single 2.5 inch attack line. So it became searching without a hose line, which led into VES of searching units. So an apartment unit with a nozzle team already operating and doing a window-oriented search, right? Or they're very similar tactics, very similar flexibility you have to have as an operating firefighter on the scene. So once we started doing the high-rise search with no line, that entered a whole other bag of worms. So we lived in a sea can for a month, teaching the whole department, me and 3 other guys, Higgins, Reedman, and Pooley. We taught the whole department a whole bunch of tactics, and it was awesome. We set up the sea can with a heater, and we lived in there in the month of November. Now, what we ended up realizing through that is there's a whole other lens of what guys have been through that we had never been through, can never go through, hopefully never go through. So you can't put yourself in those guys' shoes, right? Whenever I train in Barrie or any job, really, you have to apply it from the lens of what your other people have gone through. So I'm not going to talk to it too much because it's not my story to tell. but you have to apply the training lens of what your department has gone through and remember its history and what was given and lost and sacrificed. So just because someone might not be 100% on board on this tactic that you're trying to convince and demo and train them on, you have to remember what their personal experiences have been through, right? So when you look at it from that, all of a sudden you have to have a lot more understanding of maybe this isn't pushback, maybe this is just a deeper understanding of the job on a level that I hope nobody has to go through.
That you can draw from and actually build yourself and the rest of the department up from.
Yeah, and when we were doing survival training, we were redoing the whole survival program for the department. They brought down a few guys who were involved that day who one of the PCs is head of our survival program, and he was actually a driving force of the survival program getting built in Ontario shortly after that. So when he speaks, you listen. Like when he brings in those firsthand experiences of what he went through building the program, and here we are 20 years later trying to build that program again. That guy is a wealth of knowledge, and you just sit back and you could hear a pin drop when he starts talking about that time. So again, it's not my story to tell, but I have the utmost respect for that subject and all those guys.
Yeah, it gave you a perspective.
Yeah. And we all knew coming in, like, and everybody in the area knew what happened then, but it was a subject that is near and dear to everyone's hearts, and we don't talk about it too much publicly.
You wrote about 50 guys working tirelessly on different programs. Is that within your own department?
Yeah. And I think that's any fire department, but we have a few programs that we're building. We've done a full nozzle switch over. So we switched everything to 7/8 smoothbore tips in our attack lines. We're running really great hose. That was actually an accident. So once we did the high-rise program and switched to the 1-1/8 smoothbore and did all of our new flows and flow tests and flow studies and like nozzle and hose evaluations, it was a crazy amount of work on the back end. So then the question comes up like, okay, well, what's in our attack lines? If this nozzle works so well in this situation, how does it apply to residential structure firefighting? So all of a sudden we look at our hose and I'm like, well, guys, to get into a nozzle, the department has to buy hose. Like this is a whole thing. Like we got to start square one. Like this is a 10-year flip over. So just for curiosity, I called the hose manufacturer and they're down in the States. And I'm like, hey, it's Rob. I'm like, I have permission to call you and talk about our gear. I'm like, what nozzle are we supposed to be running on that hose we got of yours? And he's like, well, it's a low to high pressure hose. You can run anything from a 50 PSI low pressure smoothbore to 75 PSI mid pressure high fog nozzle. I'm like, okay, game changer. So we went at it, did a full transition smoothbore on the whole department. And I mean, other than the pistol grips, which is a whole other bag of worms, it went really well. A little pushback here and there because it's something new. And again, you have to apply it from the lens of like, this is what guys know. This is what they've successfully put fires out with. You're telling them it's not going to work now? No, it always worked. It's just, here's why. We've done these studies. We've done the UL thing. We've done the FRSI thing. Here's the data. Here's why we're switching. Let's go through it. So then, again, if we're involved in that, I think it's important for anybody who's teaching any of these programs in their own house to look back and realize you might be involved in this, but there's 50, 60, 70, 80% of your department that are grinding every day on the back end, making all these programs work, right? You got retired guys who helped bring the AutoX program forward, or you got platoon chiefs who up until they got made up were running the AutoX program. So again, it's our time in these programs, but you have to remember all those guys blazed that trail for you to have this opportunity to step up and fill that role, right? There's a reason why it was open. Maybe they ran out of time. They have a promotion. They are now focused on being a captain. They can't run the high-rise program, or they can't run the AutoX program or the forcible entry. When I took over the forcible entry kind of literature, just going through it all, the amount of work that this one guy Monkman had put in for years prior, it was staggering. And I was like, I don't even know where to start. Like this file is massive, right? And it's all the Mike Perone stuff that they had custom curtailed to us, right? We had concrete chainsaws just for RIT to be staged for cutting basement foundations because, again, of our department history, right? So we had this whole lens of systems already in place that it's like, okay, how do we navigate this with paying respect to all the work that went into this and not just wiping it off the table? Like, you can't apply it like that. Everything was in here for a reason. So if you're making a change, it better not just be because you want to make a change and have your name attached to it. It better be because you firmly believe it's better for the service and better for the citizens and better for you. And if you can apply all three of those check marks to this program, I wouldn't be changing a thing, right? Just because you want to be a guy who drove change, you're in it for the wrong reasons. Time to let the next guy take over.
So on that same lens, talk to me about the balancing act of training too much and then maybe losing the floor. Like, what's that pace like?
That has taken me a bit to kind of learn. So we bounce stuff off each other all the time, and I bounce stuff again off my buddies who are teaching in other departments all the time. But you could train day and night all day, right? And what will happen is you're going to dilute the quality of that training, right? So I firmly believe, because you can't go through everything that we got to do in a day, right? If you're taking off the trucks or you're unscheduled out where you're in training for the week, totally different, right? But if you're an operations guy trying to train on duty, there is a balancing point where you're going to lose the crowd, right? You can't beat them up all day, right? And especially if you're not demoing. I got no confidence in an instructor who doesn't demo what he's doing first, right? Put yourself in those positions, prove to us that it works, right? Stand there with your arms crossed without even your gear on, lecturing us on what we're going to do, completely unacceptable. So if you come at it and we're going to demo it and we're going to get our butts kicked all day, training on amazing stuff, there is a tip over point where exhaustion takes over, fatigue takes over, heat, right? And then now we're losing the group.
And learning doesn't happen.
Learning doesn't happen. It's how do I get through this scenario as quick as I can to get water in me and get that guy out of here, because we're going to have a fire or a major run in 30 minutes. And that's just the way it goes, right? And on our VES training, one of the crews, 20 minutes on their way back from training, we had just gone over 24-foot single-man extension ladders, which is the standard for our recruit classes. So when we did this CCAN 4-week program, really what it was is to show the floor what their last few recruit classes were capable of, right? As like any fire department, you have multiple generations of training divisions who have trained guys on the floor. So the standard now by Rob and Pete is a 24-foot single firefighter extension ladder race, right? Over the shoulder, boom, however we're getting it done. So when we were doing that in the CCAN, 20 minutes later, those guys had a fire, second floor of a 4-story walk-up, and boom, there it is on the news. 20-year firefighter, never done it until that morning, single ladder over the shoulder, boom, over the balcony-oriented search. It was incredible. When you do whatever that training is that you're doing and you're passionate and you gotta race the clock, I get 3 crews done today. If you can't get 3 crews done with the quality that it deserves, then you can't get 3 crews done, right? You got to have to bump whatever you're bumping next shift, but racing through it just for check marks can't be done. And that's what I do love about where I'm working. They do put the time in, and they've given a lot of guys who are in the programs the proper time to train on it. It still seems too fast, right? You could spend a week on every topic, but it is what it is. And we got to get through it. And there has to be some consensus of what we're willing to cut and put to phase 2. You can't run every program from start to finish. You have to have a staggered approach. And, you just can't let phase 2 get put on the shelf for too long. You got to hit it while it's fresh. It's a couple months, boom, we're back to phase 2. So I find high intensity, short bursts of training is far more beneficial than a long day just, kicking the crap out of everybody if you're on shift. Right. And not targeting people, like pointing people to death. That's the other thing. Like, again, I took Steve Macris's tactics. All my PowerPoints are put on the walls. Let's work them together. At least we're standing with a coffee, walking through the training space, right? You're absorbing different pieces, real world, talking about it, looking at it, versus sitting in a class, click, 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 click. Everybody good? Okay, let's gear up and drive down to the training grounds 45 minutes later, right? And hopefully we still remember it. So I'm a big fan of that training style, and it's been going good.
You've had a couple of rescues and fires, and so talk to me about your perspective on search, and now with the surge of the importance of search, which is where we always should have been.
Again, it's one of those things until it's your day. So our department has had a ton of successful rescues, which I was unaware of, and it can happen on another shift, and I won't hear about it for weeks. And I'm like, what? What do you mean? And I call that guy, like, tell me everything that happened, right? And I want to build a database in-house, which shout out to those guys, Firefighter Rescue Ontario. Those guys are doing awesome work. I've been following them since they started. Like, the amount of work those guys are putting into it is unbelievable. But yeah, I was involved in 2. One was a high-rise, one was a residential structure fire. And the high-rise one was multi-unit high-rise. We were going in with the nozzle team simultaneously. Nozzle team did their thing, came across right as the search team's coming in. And the amount of effort that it took to remove that person versus training, and then going down a smoke-filled hall, down a floor, getting back to the elevator, getting elevator sector involved, it was unbelievable. The individuals who were involved with that, the amount of work it took was shocking. And I was not unprepared for the rescue, because we did it. It went as good as it could have gone, and everything was textbook, except the amount of effort and energy it took. It's not no 80-pound dummy, right? And things don't bend like the mannequins do in the burn house. So training with live victims and the emphasis we put on search now, like that is our priority, right? And a building's not empty till the fire department has occupied that space and deemed it empty. And with the search thing too, like even on the residential one, it was a hoarder unit. We couldn't do the typical drags, right? We had to get into the old school fireman carry to get out of the hoarder situation, to get to the stairs, to get out of the house. And by the time I reached that patio, I call it like marathon syndrome. Like I was, as soon as the smoke cleared and I was outside with that victim, gassed. And it was like the hands could not come quick enough to help, right? And that was like everybody worked their butt off to make that happen. So going through that, it definitely applies a real world lens. And then you're talking to, senior captains, and it's like, when we're doing the VES training, it's like, I took a VES course 15 years ago. And then 2 weeks later, I entered a window and removed a lady. And it's like, how do we not know that and have that into our program, right? So trying to dig into these senior guys, like they've done it, they've been there. This is not new. It might be new to you, right, teaching it, but it's not new to them. They've done it. So take into account and talk to your people. Senior guys can be scary. They can be intimidating. Talk to them. They will be more than happy to share their stories with you of what they've been through in a different time.
Before it had a name.
Exactly. When it was just firefighting. It was just search, right? Just search. There was a lot less acronyms. Right?
Which is funny, because it seems like now we're hopefully going to get to that, or gets back to that point where we don't have all the acronyms and names for things. It's just search. It's just normal.
Yeah. Just window entered search, right?
Yeah.
And going past the door, and like, I hate acronyms, right? And I like simple firefighting, right? I like all the old kind of techniques that are now back, right? Studies have shown what they were doing was right. We've tried to kind of over safety lens it to death to now where we became inefficient. So now the UL and the FRSI stuff and all this has proven, nope, what we were doing was right, right? And has always been right, depending where you worked, right? So going back to that side of it has been amazing. And then like even searching, like coming out with no victim and clearing a building is as honorable of a task as that crew that made the grab, right? Just being able, yes, it's awesome. You made a rescue. It's what we signed up for and what we trained for. And all of your whole career might come down to that one call, right? Unfortunately, for what we're seeing is that the rescues are far more frequent than we realized. So it's maybe not that one time in your career, right? It could be far more frequent than that. But clearing a building as a primary search team is no more daunting of a task than clearing halfway through that building and making a successful rescue and then someone else finishing that search. And I think that gets lost in our training too, where like we add clout to guys who have made grabs, where I think everybody on that fire ground has worked their butt off the exact same way. And yes, again, it was your time. It's your time to be that guy. But every guy in that fire service has done that 100 times effectively, right? Efficiently. Just thankfully for the civilians, there's been nobody in the building.
Yeah, I was talking to a couple of students today in the camp that how confident you need to be in your search to know that you didn't miss anybody and that you searched every space.
Yep. And one of my searches, the one where we found a victim, we had searched it correctly. And I searched the bed and I went just that extra little person on my shoulder. I was like, I would critique that search right now. And boom, go back. I haven't even left the spot. I just replaced a hand just to double check. I was like, ugh, that was a lot of blankets. Bam.
Wow.
Right. So it's like Minesweeper, right? I tell everybody, it's like that one box you don't click is the one that will have the bomb, right? And we're not putting mannequins in the roof. We're not putting mannequins in the kitchen cupboards, right? Let's have realistic scenarios of where we've actually had successful people removed from buildings. Let's not make this crazy. where have we found people? Let's replicate those, and let's put everybody in that situation and build the confidence from there, because it's happened far more than we realize. As soon as we get out there and talk to our people, you'll realize how many times it's happened.
You wrote about helping with recruit classes, the effect of your actions and Halligan's in pack.
Yeah, I don't think we realize how much recruits and students are actually watching you, especially if you are presenting yourself, or the instructors are presenting you as the quote unquote subject matter expert, right? You've been brought in to help teach SCBA, donning and doffing, or whatever it is. They're looking at you with the same eagerness we all looked at our instructors with, right? Like when you're in recruit class, like, holy smokes, this is the team. So it's funny, like all of a sudden I run my Halligan down my pack, right? Some guys hate it. You get the chirps when you're taking your Halligan out. Oh, He-Man, hey, drawing your sword. But it's effective, it works, and it works in certain situations. I'm not searching with it like that. I'm not dragging a line like that. But when I'm gearing up and I'm going from, third due up to being on deck to do a search, all of a sudden I've got 2 extra hands to bring 2 extra pieces of equipment. And what's always with me is Halligan in my pack. We go to make entry, boom, pop it up, out, away we go. So when you look, all of a sudden you'll see guys from the recruit class behind you, or the one that you just helped with, and there's a Halligan in the pack. There's a mask over the shoulder, 2 spring clamps around the back of their coat tail, right? They've got their cutters in their chest pocket instead of their leg pocket. And then all of a sudden there's webbing around it with a big golf ball, drilled through. So it's a nice, easy grab handle. And these little critiques that guys see, it kind of just spreads like wildfire. From the days of, we were getting in trouble for not trouble, but we were getting spoken to about, we hear you guys are putting spring clamps on doors. Like, are you going to wreck the paint of these doors? Like, what are you guys doing? So now every high-rise bag, every med bag, every defib, almost every guy or gal has spring clamps in their coat, right? So again, it's just progression. It just takes that time. It takes a team of everybody being on the same page and like-minded. And I will say, like, where I work, I cannot say enough good about the people that work there. It is hard chargers, absolute studs, up and down. Like, it's amazing.
Talk to me about deploying your craft within your captain's playbook.
Whenever we're teaching, I'll get a text later. I'll get a guy off on the side. He's like, hey, that was awesome. That's not how my crew does things. Or that's, hey, I'm going back to my department. I'm over in the west end of Saskatchewan, and that's not how my department rock and rolls. But I really love what we just learned. And it's like, yeah, absolutely. All we taught you was search, right? Do you have a policy on how to search? If your policy is, hey, we search, this is the tactic of how we can search, right? So you can only operate within your captain's playbook. It's not your job as a backseat firefighter to all of a sudden, hey, Cap, I learned to search this way. We should do this. That conversation shouldn't even be happening, right? But first off, any good captain, which I love working overtime or shipping out, because the first thing the majority of these guys do, Wiggs, here's how I run my crew. Here's where I want you. You're on the nozzle today, blah, blah, blah. This guy's on the irons, yada, yada, yada. Here's where I want you. Here's where I'm going to be spaced. I'm like, perfect. This is going to be an awesome day, right? We're expectation at 8:01 in the morning. Love it. And then it's like, yep, new guy takes a defib, this and that. So what that captain doesn't tell me to do is how to force a door, right? If I'm on irons, he's like, you're on irons. He's not telling me what to do. What I've learned on and or off the job, or you've learned on and or off the job, that is your craft, right? That is, you are now the master of that trade. You deploy that craft within your captain's playbook, right? You can't get frustrated and be like, my captain wouldn't let us search past the door. That's not his playbook today. What did he ask you to do? He asked you to stretch the line to the door. He's not going to tell you how he wants it done, right? That's up to you. Dealer's choice, right? You know the play. What do you got, right? And with too many tools in the toolbox, like, you can crowd yourself with too many tactics, right? Keep it simple, bring it back to basics, make it effective, and have an A, B, and C on deck, right? Obstacle comes up, boom, moving out of the way, on to B, let's make it happen. Working within that playbook, I think, is where, especially with guys who are newer into the off-the-job training, they go back way too eager to try to have that influence on, like, their day-to-day tactics. It's like, guys, the other 3 people on your truck did not take that course. So 1, you have to catch them up to speed, but 2, they have to believe in it, believe in you, right? That you're able to do what the things that you just said. Let's drill it. Let's do it on the bay floor. Let's go from there. Maybe we can play it. And then chances are they've already done it. They already know it. You're just applying a fresh lens on maybe a rebranded tactic that has a few tweaks that make it more efficient. Because we're all students of this craft. It's who's the presenter, right? What lens of expertise and experience are they bringing to it? because that's what I think it comes down to in the off the job training. You're paying for that, taking on your own time, whatever. That delivery is what you're there for, right? Anybody can just watch YouTube and be like, yeah, let's replicate those exact moves. That instructor is going to bring his entire years of playbook experience to that drill, and you're going to walk away with a way greater understanding of why you're doing it, right? Like listen to Nebraska or Cadiz when I took their course, like there is no question those guys are like, there is no doors they are not passionate about. It was unbelievable, right? And you're in awe. You're like, well, I'm just going to be a sponge and I'm going to stick around after class, and we're going to hopefully they're going to throw a bottle of water and sit on the pickup tailgate for an hour and take a break because I want to be beside that tailgate just listening.
Are you recognizing now people that are coming up that are new on the job that are the next generation, and you're stepping back to let others teach, let them sort of come up and support them like you were supported?
100%. And my transition to work like at Barrie was so smooth, and the guys were so supportive that now I'm in this position where I'm helping out with all these programs, but you can't be everywhere at all times, right? So you have to let other people take interest in it. If they have an interest in it, man, there is nothing better than watching a guy that you helped train or had a small part in them being interested in that subject, and you sit back and watch them take that program and then add to it, and you're like, this is incredible. You're watching them deliver what you thought was your class or portion of a class to the recruits, and here they are. They're like, oh, okay, he's clearly polished this up a few points because those aren't my talking points, and that sounds way smarter than the way I would have said it, right? So it's like every point they bring to it, and again, it's fresh perspective. And it's not that anybody knows more. It's just we were exposed to more. We had the opportunities to learn from some extra people from some other departments, so we have more experiences to draw from and more time to kind of curtail what our delivery and what our actual messaging is. And now those guys who you taught take your message, right? And we're knowledge thieves. Get everyone's information, take what works for you, remove what doesn't, right? But keep it in the back of your mind, because maybe your department finds you in that situation where you're at that size and those tactics are not relevant to you. And then watching these guys go, like, it's incredible. I love it. I want to fade into the shadows like that Simpsons meme where Homer just goes into the bushes and everything's just running, right? And it's awesome.
Yeah, I was saying today that try my best to cite everybody and everyone and recognize as many people as possible. But I said, just in general, just assume everything falling out of my mouth is not mine.
100%.
just as a caveat, catch all, just assume it's not mine. I'm just passing it to you.
Yeah, I'm actually worried that I'm going to miss thanking someone for like the influence they've had on me. Like there's so many people who like our one, Paul McDonald was my first SFIR chief. He was amazing. Like he took such an interest in his guys, and I could go on for an hour of the people who helped me get to where I am. And again, I'm sure every instructor or every firefighter feels the same way. We're not anyone special. We just got put in extraordinary situations and ended up lucky enough to be at the receiving end of some amazing instructors, right? And if you apply that lens to it, like it's humbling. Why are these guys listening to me, right?
Are you optimistic in general about the fire service and where things are going?
I think it's awesome. I love the fire service. My wife will listen to me yak about it for hours, and she's like, all right. Like, and I think what happens when you get into the job, right, you can start to get a bit of a frown towards people who maybe aren't as into the job as you. But first off, that's subjective. And just like every electrician is not going home and talking about how into the job he is, right? A guy can be 100% guy, absolutely dialed. He doesn't have to be 120% guy going above and beyond doing this. He might be coach and rep hockey or have other interests where my hobby just happens to be my primary job as well, right? I get to go on these courses, get to travel with some of my good buddies and go take courses or teach courses at these amazing venues. That's one of my hobbies. So you can't apply that lens of like, hey, like, listen, if the guy's an 80% guy, yeah, let's bring him up to 100. But you can't bring everybody up to 120%, nor should you want to, right? You want your team, if the guys are rocking and rolling, and man, we run, like, there are some dialed crews, and they run a good fire, and they run a good scene. All you're offering is another perspective to them. You're not teaching them how to run a scene, right? Nor should you think who do you think you are to teach them another thing, right? Like you are offering a skill that maybe they can expand on, but you don't think those guys know how to force a door, right? You don't think they know how to stretch a line or put it a fire. They've been doing it for 15 years. But hey, here's a slick way of a quick little maneuver on something you're already a master at. Love it, hate it, either way, right? But I'm optimistic, and especially in the local scene. I love the fact that the Ontario scene is blowing up. Your podcast, True North, Hogtown, like the SFA True North guys. I mean, look at the growth that's had, right? My work sent a few of us up to catch Ramagus's Cruel Intentions a few years ago. So having buy-in from your department is a game changer as well. So again, I'm biased. I work for an amazing fire department with amazing people. Like, we have a tactics group chat, and it's just a brain Bible of fire stuff. It's awesome. You can spend hours through that trying to catch up, and it's like, okay, that's enough for a Sunday. Right? Like, we'll deal with this Monday now. It's just too deep.
Do you have any thoughts of promotion? Like, where do you see yourself being in a few years?
So that was one of the things when I was weighing my pros and cons of switching jobs, that what if promotion never happens? And I was fortunate enough to have a brief stint as a volunteer captain to know that is a totally different animal. So I don't think you can just jump into that role and think, yeah, I'm just going to be a captain. I know enough to know I don't know enough. That's a whole other bag of worms. If the opportunity arises, obviously, it's something I'm probably interested in down the road. But if that's not in my cards, I'm totally content where I am. I always, joke that, hey, maybe I'd sign up for a TO job one day down the road or whatnot, but I'm in an amazing spot with amazing crews, and I get the best of both worlds. They let me teach during the day, and then they let me teach recruit classes, and then I go back to the trucks and get to be on the rigs. I kind of get my fill teaching off the job and on the job. So I'm really happy being in the backseat right now. And I'm going to ride, the guys make fun of me, but we have a few of our rigs that still have rear facing seats. I am riding backwards until they tell me I can't, right? Like window down, foot in the door.
Foot in the door, yeah. Nothing like it.
Yeah. And whenever they put the seats, 2 packs forward facing in the middle, I'm like, okay, what's going on here? Like, I get it, it's safer and all that, but as long as there's a seat riding backwards,
and you trust your driver, it's all good.
Yeah. Well, and that honestly, that came from that fire truck crash. Like, you have no choice but to trust your driver, right? And maybe that's why I like riding backwards so much, right? Like, I was forward facing for that. It wasn't super comfortable rolling over 3 times, going 100 kilometers an hour. So I don't know, maybe that's where riding backwards came from, but I love it, and the guys are incredible.
Did that accident change how you see driving?
So it definitely changed the pace at which, like, I still drive aggressive for the call. I think everybody does, but I think you definitely have a different lens when you have been involved in that cars pop out of everywhere. Things can happen. Shoulders get soft, especially in ice. Like, down in the city, we used to run 3-4 different highways at the crisscrossing intersections, 407, QE, 427. Now it's like, we got the big bad 400. It is an ice rink, right? And cottage traffic, blowing winds, you name it. Even in the city, like, I grew up in this town, and the change, like, we are now becoming a vertical city. We have 40-story high-rises coming up. Like, we always had a big vertical city footprint, but up until recently, our tallest buildings were 15 stories. So when you start driving in this level of congestion on city streets that you grew up in, that you were not used to that congestion, you apply a different level lens to it. And again, unless you've been in that situation, I don't think you can truly appreciate it, right? And the guys have been involved in that no different than me. And I think you don't walk away without those scars kind of applying to your driving. Mm-hmm. But when it's time to go, it's time to go.
Yeah, that's right. Well, the air ride trucks too, I find they feel like they're floating. You don't feel the road like you used to.
Yeah, 100%, right? All the tech and bells and whistles, and it's great, but we're fortunate enough to still have manual pump panels, so you still get a feel for it. We're still Barrie's great. It's a bit old school in those. We have a truck committee of all guys who are from the floor. It's great. Rigs are awesome. So we got a sweet new color combo. Looks awesome.
There's some things that should just stay analog or mechanical.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like air conditioning. I like heat. Like the, that's great.
Switching to the reserve pump on August with no air conditioning is no fun.
Yeah, but deck guns can stay manual. Thank you very much.
I would love that.
Yeah,
love that.
Do you guys have cross mount pumps?
Yeah, they're all cross mount with cross lays.
Amazing.
Yeah. So we're every truck is kind of set up the same. Our rescues are basically just advanced rescue pumps. So we run a squad, which has all of our hard tech rescue stuff. We run a hovercraft. We've got pumps and rescues and ladders, but the rescues are a fully equipped pump. So you might see a rescue in the north end or something. It's a full pump crew with advanced AutoX on board.
Nice.
So all of our stuff is pretty universal.
Nice. Anything else you want to cover before we wrap up?
No, I think that's it, man. I don't know. I just hope I thanked everybody who I should have, and I could talk for 4 more hours. So.
Well, I'm glad we were finally able to connect, man, and make this happen.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, buddy. I was looking at the first email from when I had to cancel. It was like 2023 already.
No way.
Wow. I was like, are you kidding? I thought it was like 6 months ago in my head, right? I'm like,
we only do so many in a year too. So like sometimes I worry that people think I've forgotten. And, I made mention of it when we talked, and it just goes by the wayside, and it hasn't. It's just, I have a list. I'm slowly working through it, and there's no deadlines. We can only do what we can do. So eventually, if you're out there, I've sent you an email and we haven't talked, you're still on the radar. Yeah.
Right on. Well, I truly appreciate the opportunity, and I want to say thanks again to everybody, and love where you work. I think that's my takeaway. If I could say one thing to everyone, love where you work. Where you work's the best. If it's not, let's work towards making it the best.